Hello and good afternoon. This is Ronald Burr with another edition of Style Speaks. I have a very special guest in front of me today in this rainy weather on the historic campus of Howard University. WHUR Radio 96.3, host of his own talk show called The Daily Drum, Mr. Harold Fisher. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you
I'm saying
so
welcome. Thank you for having me.
And
I'm like you're in my home.
Welcoming you here.
I feel like this is my home. This is, I'm from D.C. But where are you from?
I'm from D.C. originally.
Are you really?
Born in Southeast. Don't remember a lot about it.
Okay.
Family moved from Southeast near Minnesota and Fort DuPont Park.
Oh, okay.
In '68, after the riots.
Okay.
I moved out to Prince George's County and was raised there until I went off to college at Morgan State in Baltimore.
Oh, and then you came back here to D.C.?
Oh, yeah. Came back for a little while, and then I was working here, actually, at WHUR 1987 to 88, and then left and went into television for 17 years and left D.C., Florida, Alabama, Ohio, Western New York, Missouri, and Baltimore, which is where I live now.
Oh, wonderful. You've kind of been all over the place.
Yes.
And as you come back home. Well, how long have you been here with the Daily Drum? How long have you been hosting the show here?
I came back in 2007, and the torch was passed to me by Herman Washington.
Right.
And so let me gently correct, it's not my show.
Okay.
It is a show that is on loan.
Okay.
As it has been.
Own it. I think he should own it.
And I think I do. I try to provide ownership, but it is its own voice. And it's been that way for more than 40 years. And at some point, hopefully many years down the road, I will have the privilege of passing the torch to someone, but I most certainly hope that's not anytime soon.
Okay, so, he likes his day job. He likes his day job. Well, great. Well, I wanted to switch gears for a moment. I've been listening to you for a long time, and of course, this is a style and fashion blog that I do. And what I like to hear from personalities in the city, I kind of, I'm a Facebook friend of yours, and I see your little introductions to what's going to happen on your show. I see the nice little as you come in here today with a nice little tie and shirt combo. How would you describe your sense of style? We talked a little bit about and I wanted you to save it. You were talking about your sense.
I've always considered my sense of style classic.
Classic.
Although it has gone through a bit of a transformation because I've added color later in life.
Wonderful.
Prior to going to college, it was really formal and just kind of stick in the mud.
Okay. Your blacks and blues and kind of safe colors and stuff
grays
like
and things like that.
Wouldn't be caught dead with a yellow shirt under.
No, not at all.
Okay.
But and that's not yellow. That's actually canary.
Okay. Oh, it's got some technical terms. I'll give you that. I like that.
But one of my frat brothers used to say to me all the time, I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, and one of my frat brothers, a professor at Morgan State, used to tell me all the time, he used to say, brother, you need to add a little bit of color to your wardrobe.
Oh, is that right?
And he said, add color, but don't be colorful.
Okay.
And so I tried it. And he said, ladies like color, but he said it just adds a little spice to the meal.
Right.
That's the way he would always put it.
Okay.
And I've kind of adopted that. But I've always had a thing for cufflinks.
Okay.
A really big thing of mine. I own very few barrel cuff shirts.
Okay.
Love cufflinks. And I think that form of dress comes from my father.
Okay. Well, that was my next question, but you could transition right into that. Well, where did that sense of style actually develop from?
Well, from a man's perspective, my father.
I may have to throw my notes away. Seems like he's gonna have all the answers before I ask him the questions, but it's okay.
But my father was always a natty dresser. Always a very natty dresser, and this was back in the days when Garfinkel's and Raleigh's, Woodward and Lothrop, and even Sims. Was around, and he took me as a dutiful father should. I still believe he took me when I was probably in my early teens, and he kind of began an education for dressing, and he said, this is, he ran through, this is the kind of material, this is the kind of stitching that you want, this is how your pants should hang on you. And and I remember him always saying, no matter what kind of transition styles go through, there were always some basics, which is why I kind of started with the grays, the blues, and the blacks.
Right.
And then I learned how to tie a bow tie. Funny story. Learned how to tie a bow tie at Raleigh's in Landover Mall.
Okay.
Because one of the salesmen was a member of my church. And he taught me how to tie a bow tie back in the 1980s, and we went through it. And then after we wrinkled up one of the bow ties and I got it right, he said, "You are going to buy that." Yes, and you know, and I did. Yeah. So that's always been my thing. I'm a clothes horse, and I really like it.
So I don't like to use the C word, conservative. So would you classify yourself? I mean, a lot of the styles and things that you've said kind of, to me, you know, with the classic look, the patterns, the detail, the textures, and I think it was great that you you had that influence and that knowledge. As a young person, I very rarely hear that today with young people, and so having that knowledge, and if you had to use a term or a word, if you will, would you consider yourself conservatively dressed?
I used to be. I used to be.
Sometimes it has like a negative connotation. I don't like. I call it the C word because.
But it's not political.
It's kind of boring, I guess. The
word it wasn't a political way of dressing. Although I will say this, going to an HBCU during the 1980s. You did have, you know, really kind of three forms of dress. You had your guys from New York who were, you know, had the hip hop dress of, you know, Run DMC and the like, and that was fine for them. You know, the gazelle glasses, and that's what they were into. You had a lot of guys from DC back in the 80s who were wearing preppy. We were into the prep. We were into the khakis. We were penny loafers, dock siders, exactly, with the colored socks and you know, the two golf shirts. You know,
with the collar up.
Exactly.
If you were cool enough to, you know, be able to stand that.
And so I think it was regional, but for me personally, when I got into college, particularly, you know, my last couple of years, a lot of us, my peer group, we began to dress in school for the kind of jobs that we were preparing for and hoping for.
That's what they teach now.
And we were really trying to be professionals. I mean, we didn't do it all the time.
Right.
But I think, you know, for the majority of time, I did have a lot of blue blazers, and you know, but I did have some really sharp plaid, dark plaid wool. Slacks that I really liked, got from Hamburgers in Baltimore. Hamburgers is no longer around. Did a lot of thrift store shopping. So I wouldn't say it was conservative then. Now I think just a little more, again, classical in the dress, with a little bit of spice, a little bit of splash.
Okay. Well, what about some of the in your line of work? I mean, you're kind of behind the scenes. I know you kind of do this introduction, and so you get to see like your nice little combos, which I look forward to seeing. But you're in radio.
You don't see me.
So you don't see you. So how important is it? I mean, in listening to your background and how you were raised and bred and taught, how important is it for you to actually present yourself in the way that you present yourself, or is this something that's just innately in you, or do you deem it important? You know, being in radio, you work around other people, your colleagues. Do they tend to pay attention to how they look, or they just kind of come to work any old kind of way? Well, and your view on the importance of that.
Well, there are three answers, and they all go into the same kind of pot. First of all, it's who I am. I'm never going to leave the house looking raggedy. It's just not.
Whether you're behind the scenes or not.
I mean, even now as a grown man, you know, my parents, if I were to go to visit my dad and I'm looking raggedy, he would look at.
Okay.
What's going on? I mean, he would say to me, you know, what's going on with you?
Okay.
My mother would also say, what's happening? So that's part of me. But the second thing is, even though this is an entertainment infotainment venue, WHUR, and the Howard University Radio Network, it's still a professional environment. So it doesn't really matter.
But people get away with it. They don't comply, right?
Well,
I mean, everybody don't have the same
On the day of this interview, we have a casual Friday here, and so people may be more casual, but because there is always an opportunity where I may be greeting guests, and I never know who may come, whether it's you, I may have a congressman coming in, there may be a Hollywood starlet, or even if it's just somebody from the community that is going to be on this show, I still have to be presentable, and I think that's manners, that's common courtesy. You always look your best.
That's a great way to be. So. That's a part of who you are. Well, if you were to say, if there was someone recognizable, an entertainer out there, that's somebody that you may admire, their sense of style, who would you kind of compare your look to? And then I want to follow. Ain't nobody, just him. Ain't nobody. Okay. Well,
no.
That kind of you gotta to kind of remind you of you and your look and your style and your your package.
Honestly,
you look like or remind me, because that was my next question. Do people think that you look like someone? Everybody kind of has that Hollywood twin.
Well, perhaps, but I think that's changed because I shaved my head, as I mentioned, because. Bald heads are in. Not, but I have to shave almost every day because I'm not losing my hair.
So is that why you're doing it? Because it's
I mean, you want to stay current.
Okay.
Exactly. And
he's trying to make some hookups too. Sound like I don't know. I'm trying to do it for somebody.
But also, it's cheaper.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's cheaper.
Okay. But so everybody can't. I mean, you rock a bald head, but everybody can't rock.
That's
a bald
true.
head.
That's true. And I didn't think I could do it either. But it is cheaper. Not only as it relates to money, but it's also cheaper. It saves time because who wants to stay in the barbershop all day?
Right. With the shape ups and all that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Okay.
So.
He definitely don't. He's making it moving and shaking.
But as far as a person. I really can't. I will say that there's something that has come up very, very recently, and I say recently.
Share with us.
Have you seen this show on USA called Suits?
Yes.
The guy who plays the main character, Gabriel Mott.
Yes.
That show is fantastic.
Oh, absolutely! I love that show.
And that's aside from the fact that it's well written and the plot is great. But I love the suits in that show.
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
Oh, absolutely.
And not just the fashion for the men.
Isn't it the USA Stage channel?
Yeah, it's USA. Wonderful. I can't wait till it comes back on.
Yeah.
But also not just for the men, but the women in the show look great too.
Yeah.
I mean, they look fantastic. And so for someone who just doesn't appreciate men's clothing, but clothing and fashion as a whole, that's my thing. But as far as a person... No. It's not there isn't a person that I could name. It's more of a style, a grown man kind of style, and I think I've always admired that. Even when I was a kid, going back to, as I said, my dad always dressed as a grown man. His father did, and even my great grandfather did. John Fisher down south with the hat,
right?
And that's old school,
right?
That's old school. Absolutely. When you got up, not just going to church. But even when they went shopping and I saw pictures of them, it was you dress up, you go so that you took your shirt off or your jacket off so that everything fit and looked good.
Put together. Well, and bringing it kind of full circle, your view on DC as a whole. How do you... I like to think that DC is very... I've been told as I do my interviews, everybody has a different opinion about, how fashionable DC is or how relevant fashion is in this town. It used to be the C word, again, for me, very conservative, very, very boring, with the government and, the president being here and all the movers and shakers. But do you see a difference, maybe in the past few decades, that it's gotten a little bit more... on what you see on the streets of DC, more fashion forward compared to some of the cities like New York and LA and Chicago and some of the other districts. What is your perception of style now?
I think that in general, cities notwithstanding, men as a whole are on one hand more relaxed.
Okay.
And I'm not necessarily saying sloppy, but more relaxed.
You can say what you want to say. We don't edit here.
Well, no, so. I mean, because I've given this a lot of thought. I mean, take you for example. You've got this dressy casual thing. You look great, so you can go into a restaurant and not have someone look at you sideways because again you're neat and you're clean, and I think that
I got all wet today. But
yeah, because of the rain. Yeah. But I think on one hand, and let's just talk about black men. Okay, I'm talking about black men who are concerned about their appearance. I think that you have some brothers that are more relaxed, and even in their relaxed state, whether they're wearing a leather jacket and jeans, they still want to look good, and I think that we've seen more of that. Okay. But then on the other hand, when you're talking about men that dress up, and particularly those men that are in their 30s and they're in their profession, they really look good, and some of them may be a little fashion forward. Okay. So and I think that's what I think of it. But I personally think that the city that New York is New York. Yeah, that's kind of and that's the way it is. But the thing that has been most surprising to me, the city that I find most fashion forward in this part of the world and most interesting is Toronto, Canada. Okay. Everyone looks good in Toronto. And I used to work in Buffalo, New York, and I used to visit Toronto all the time. Whether it's old ladies, young guys coming up, white women, black women, it's just fantastic. Wonderful. So that's what I would think.
Well, I mean I think you can really write a fashion column. I mean, you do so well. I don't know. I think you're kind of missing your calling here. He's got a lot of great answers. So, well, Mr. Fisher, let me just talk a little bit more about you, and then we're going to let you go and do what you have to do. I understand. I know you have your hands in a few things that are going on. We mentioned that at the top of the conversation. Is there something that you wanted to talk about that you were working on and you want us to look out for?
Well, sure. As some people who know, and we've seen this on Facebook and the like, I've written a novel. It's a romance novel, and surprisingly, it's done within the confines of just kind of doing things on my own. It's been, relatively successful. I'm very happy with it. It's titled 2 Weeks Until the Rest of My Life. Okay. And it is going to be a stage play brought to Washington, D.C., July 20th and 21st. Just 2 days. It's going to be at the Arc on Mississippi Avenue, 1901 Mississippi. And more information is going to be coming up.
Have you casted for it yet?
Yeah, it's already casted. And actually...
I know an actor. But
see?
Not me, but...
Actually, it just finished a run in Buffalo, New York. Okay. Because that's where it premiered. Okay. And so I have some connection in Buffalo. So we're going to bring it here. And I'm excited about it. Still in the works. Okay. And actually, your broadcast or your posting of this will be the first time that the general public is going to hear about that. So I guess I'm going to have to let people know.
I think so. I'm going to have to follow this up with some information. Well, that's wonderful. Well, I mean, should we go to did you want to give your website? I will definitely post it.
Sure. And you can either go to HaroldTFisher.com or rosefog.com. That's ROSEFOGG.com. And that's where the book is, and more information will be coming out about this. I am fortunate enough to have a WHUR to help support me in this. Absolutely. And let me say this about that. One of the most important things, and this has nothing to do with fashion, but I think this has to do with a person's station in life as it relates to their job. Rarely will people get the kind of support to do the kinds of things that they need to do for their job from their management. Right. I have gotten support not only on my job to do what I'm paid to do here, but also support from my management here. Wonderful. To do things that have nothing whatsoever to do with the radio station. Wonderful. And you can't buy that kind of support. You can't buy that kind of caring. So I work in a wonderful, wonderful place.
Well, that says a lot to you and your character too.
And this is an HBCU. And it is family. Yeah. You still got to do your job. Absolutely. A family will get in your face. Okay. But it's a wonderful place. Greatest radio station in the world.
I second that. I'm locked in all the time, every day. Mr. Fisher, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming by. I appreciate it.
So. That's another edition of Style Speaks. We'll see you next time.